attacks were told that they represented people from Britain. We had people like Tommy Robinson. We've got Gert Wilders. We've got Marine Le Pen. And we have to send out a message with the rest of the people who are demonstrating in those countries against those racists and fascists to say, you shall not pass. We will not allow you. We will not allow you to attack the Muslim community. We will not allow you to scapegoat Muslims. We know where this ends. It ends in the Holocaust. It ends with those people organising to attack people. It ends in the gas chambers. And we have to make sure that doesn't happen again. And that's what the dangers that we see taking place across Europe. This is the most racist election campaign I've ever seen. Nigel Farage is a racist. It's not true. When he says that there's a fifth column inside this country, the fifth column are the racists and the Nazis, and his organisation is encouraging those attacks. We have to be clear about it. When people say that they've made up stories about who's to blame for what's taking place now, how is it that you have an organisation that takes alleged bribes and takes money from Parliament? This organisation is responsible for many things about the lies about migrants. Nigel Farage was a banker, a commodity trader, and these people crashed the economy. They're to blame. Do not blame migrants for the problems that they cause when they try and divide black and white. We have to say, you are to blame and we stand against you. I'd like to introduce a group of families that are going to come to the forefront. Come. Family. I just want to say that there's a solidarity message come from the United States to stand with Mark Brown's family, Eric Garner's family. There's a demonstration taking place in New York, and I think we have to remember that of those families. I'd like to introduce Stephanie Lightfoot-Bennett from the United Friends and Family. Please give her a round of applause.
It's amazing to see the amount of people that have turned out. The last time I saw a rally like this, I was in Brazil for the Metro Union Workers rally. I was out there speaking on behalf of England and United Families and Friends regarding deaths in custody. My twin brother, Leon Patterson, was killed in police custody in Cheshire 22 years ago. At the first inquest, it got stopped after 3 days. Young man. At the first inquest, that got stopped because the custody sergeant's wife was on the jury. At the second inquest, I managed to get an unlawful killing verdict. It took them 2 years to overturn that verdict, and now they came back with my twin died from hypomania. It's a verdict that was solely introduced for my brother's inquest and has since been quashed and never used again. It was used for that day. To this day, 22 years later, they still refuse to give me a death certificate, because if I have a death certificate, I can take my case further. The IPCC is a joke. How do police themselves? There has never been a prosecution against any serving officer. Since 1967, we are now running at over 4,000 people dying at the hands of the state, be that secure units, prisons, hostels, and mental health units. We are literally, 1 every 6 days, somebody is dying in this country at the hands of the police, who are no more than thugs wearing the Queen's colours.
Communications Workers Union. Thank you. What a great turnout it is today, demonstrating the rise in terms of the rise of racism. Now the CWU, the communication workers, that's your postal workers, that's your telecommunication workers and the finance workers. We are one of the founders of Unite Against Fascism. And many CWU activists today have played a role in this fight against the BNP and the EDL. It's great to see our banners on the delegation here today. These fascists have had their backs broken. Weren't they pitiful as we passed them on the march? Their backs have been broken because we all can understand the need to have a broad-based movement, broad-based action in the country with uniting local communities. We highlighted the fascist nature of these organisations. We stressed the need to fight racism and defend our multicultural society. But today, we face a different problem. We face a more widespread rise of racism. UKIP is a big part of this, but it's not all. UKIP is promoting racism. They want to scapegoat immigrants. They want to destroy all our rights gained by the anti-racist movement. Farage wants to give the employers the right to discriminate. Next he'll want to extend it to the right to landlords, to shopkeepers and so on. Farage is following after his hero, Enoch Powell. And like Powell, Farage wants to end immigration, to get out of the EU and promote contempt for foreigners. But today, we have shown that we stand up to his positions. We need to use today as a platform to build a massive anti-racist movement. And it's not just UKIP. Austerity economics is creating hardship. With hardship comes anger and a search for someone to blame. Politicians supporting our austerity are also using migrant workers as a scapegoat. This is wrong.
10,000, 15,000, 20,000, however many thousand of you are here. You are not just numbers, you are not just individuals. You are pillars, you are visionaries. And you are the hope that this country has in bringing a united society. So yes, from the Muslim Council of Britain, we are proud to be part of this initiative. We are proud to support this, and I'm so pleased to see so many imams who are tweeting and sharing messages on WhatsApp groups, and other people, elder people, young people, male, female, and all sorts of people. So it's really great to be here. And let us say once again in loud and clear voice, no to racism, no to Islamophobia, stand up to racism. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the 350,000 members of the National Union of Teachers, and in our ranks we will have immigrants as members, the children of immigrants as members. We have immigrants in our classrooms and we are delighted to have them. And when our members are told they have to teach British values, they say, what are British values? We know what our values are. They are the values of internationalism. They are the values that say, stand up to racism and fascism. They are the values that say, no pasaran. They are the values that say, no to scapegoating immigrants, and no to Islamophobia, and no to anti-Semitism, and yes, yes to diversity, yes to a society that values everybody. If you haven't seen this magazine, Unity magazine, I recommend it to you. If you're a teacher, you should be using it in your classrooms. If you're not a teacher, you should be using it in your communities. It has a brilliant article in the centre pages here about serious people who are the children of or themselves immigrants. One of them is an NUT rep in a school in Leeds. I visited her school 2 weeks ago. She knows how to teach values. They have on the wall of this primary school, it's our responsibility in this school to make our problems smaller, not bigger. It was a year 2 child, a 6-year-old, who came up with that idea, because she's in a school that values diversity, where everyone is valued and where we know about the values that we should be teaching. So the National Union of Teachers is proud to stand with UAF and all the organisations here today to say no to racism and fascism. They shall not pass.
Thank you, Christine.
I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is the fabulous Diane Abbott MP.
It is so important that we are all here today saying no to racism, no to anti-Semitism, no to Islamophobia, and above all, no to UKIP. And what we have to say right here, right now, in London, to UKIP and the forces that it represents, you will not pass. We will oppose you. It is sad for me that there are some people in the Labour Party who seem to think there is any benefit in trying to out UKIP. What we have to be doing is opposing their arguments at every opportunity. And one argument that I feel very strongly we should oppose is the idea that immigrants are some kind of drain or some kind of problem for the public services. Far from immigrants being a drain on the public services, without immigrants and the children of immigrants, we would not have public services. And just a word about my friend Trevor Phillips. Trevor is quite an intelligent man. Therefore, that makes it worse that he should demean himself by peddling racist stereotypes. The same racist stereotypes that were used to attack his parents and generations of immigrants. Trevor should know better, and I hope he will reconsider the path he is taking. We should not be giving credibility to racists and Islamophobes.
Thank you, Diane. And our next speaker is the fabulous Natalie Bennett, leader of the Green Party.
It's great to be back for the second year on this stage, and the organisers tell me, and I can see for myself, that it's bigger and better this year than last year, and I'm sure next year it's going to be even bigger and better still. Now, the leader of another political party, which I won't name, but you can probably guess from my tone, said this month that he wanted to scrap much of our race discrimination laws. Well, I have no doubt that he has no backers here, but let's focus for a second on one reason why that would be an astonishingly bad idea. The last year we've got figures for 2013-14, there were 37,000 race hate crimes in Britain. That's more than 100 crimes for every 365 days of the year. Those are terrible figures. They're figures that call for action, not inaction. But today, I want to focus on the positive instead. The heartwarming, the brilliant, the humane, and that's all of you here and the message that you have. At the heart of Britain, and you are the heart of Britain, is the message that comes from UN Anti-Racism Day. We want a Britain, in fact we want a world without racism, without xenophobia, without bigotry.
Another fabulous MP, George Galloway.
Thank you, Chair. comrades and friends, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be on all of you. We gather here today, this wonderful, multicolored, multicultured, multi-faith crowd in the lee of a building that the early part of my political life was spent demonstrating against. The building on my right was once the embassy of institutionalized hatred, racial division. It was the embassy of apartheid South Africa, and now the multicolored flag of a multicolored democracy, a real republic of South Africa, stands there. And so racism, fascism can and must be defeated. And we have made real progress as a result, in large part, of the UAF and its antecedents and all those who fought fascism in the 60s, the 70s and the 80s in Britain. Now the BNP is broken. The EDL can hardly fill a coach. The so-called Britain First, the last picture I saw, couldn't fill the memorial statue to Eros in Piccadilly Square, that well-known English personality. The problem is not that there is mass support in Britain for fascism. The problem is that racism has entered the mainstream, the bloodstream of the mainstream, and the other parties are involved in a Dutch auction to see who can be meanest to immigrants, to see who can incorporate more of the agenda of racism into mainstream British politics. And as Diane Abbott said, that virus has even reached the Labour Party. Imagine a Labour Party that is setting out deliberately to blow dog whistles that UKIP voters might respond to. My family came here as immigrants from Ireland to Scotland. I immigrated from Scotland to London and have now landed in heaven for immigrants in Bradford West. And I tell you, it's a beautiful, wonderful place to be. The United Nations designated this day in 1966, but racism and bigotry has not gone away. Everybody knows that if you're black and down on the street, you're going to be treated differently, worse by the police than you will be if you look like me or most of the people on this great demonstration today. So we have much work still to do, and we have to do it together.
Now I'd like you to listen to Free Nelson Mandela by Jeremy Dammers, who's here with us today.
of musicians, artists, writers and broadcasters to take a positive stance against racism in their work and organisations, including avoiding giving a platform to racists on TV and on the radio, but instead organising positively anti-racist events. In 1984, an exiled South African musician called Julian Bahula organised a concert at Alexander Palace to commemorate Nelson Mandela's 65th birthday. He sang a song about Nelson Mandela who I had never heard of. From that I got the idea for my song Free Nelson Mandela, which helped publicise his name. Following that, Dali Tambo, the son of the exiled president of the ANC, Oliver Tambo, asked me to organise Artists Against Apartheid UK, and we staged ever larger and larger concerts, including a concert on Clapham Common of 200,000 people. This led directly to the Nelson Mandela 70th birthday concert at Wembley Stadium, which was broadcast to millions around the world, which proves that big things can grow from any action, such as Julian Bahula's initiative. So can we give a round of applause to Julian Bahula, please, for starting all that. When Mandela was freed, he spoke to the world at another concert at Wembley, then here in Trafalgar Square in 2005, when he said, like slavery and apartheid, poverty is not natural, it is man-made and can be overcome by the actions of human beings. Trickle down does not trickle down, it trickles up. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. What does this have to do with anti-racism? Poverty breeds racism and fascism, but also poor people have to have more children to survive. Musicians and artists can say things which career politicians can't say, so I will say that this issue is a global issue. I'm an internationalist. The population explosion is a global problem caused by poverty, and it requires global solutions. With immigration in the UK, population growth is still only 0.6%, which is half the global average. How mean-spirited and greedy that some of us are not willing to share in this, and the idea that we are superior beings with an automatic right to a higher standard of living than the rest of the world is racist at heart, whatever you say.
I bring the solidarity of 1.4 million members of Unite the Union. Solidarity today must be a call for action. A call for action to stand up against racism.
I bring you greetings from Unison, support and solidarity from a union with over 1.2 million members who have always campaigned against racism. And you know, this year is 50 years of race discrimination legislation in Britain. 50 years of protection against slogans that said no dogs, no blacks and no Irish. But I also want to tell you that this year is 15 years since the Irish government had the presidency of the European Union, and they brought in protection, the EU Race Directive that protects 500 million Europeans today. So let us celebrate the progress we have made, and let us stand up to racism, because racism is about division. It's about dividing people for electoral gain and for political advantage. That's why it is being used in this election.
Of giants, we owe it to our ancestors to never, ever, ever give up. So friends, we have a clear message that we stand in solidarity with each other, that we won't turn on each other, but we will hold the powerful at the top to account for what they have done. And as they try and turn this against each other, let's say loudly and defiantly, you will never ever divide us. Never, never, Never.
I'd like to introduce Jeremy Corbyn MP for Islington.
Thanks Weyman. And in Weyman we have somebody very special and very principled and very good. Weyman, thanks for everything you do, have done and will do in the cause of anti-racism and solidarity. And thank you to all of you for being here today on this cold day. We're part of demonstrations that are taking place all over Europe on what is UN Anti-Racist Day. We're standing up for a different continent and a different world. We're standing up against the rise of the far right in Greece, in Austria, in Hungary, in Germany, in France and here. We are turning the tide against these people. But I tell you, there is a price that's being paid by this European-wide xenophobia and the way in which politicians and governments that should know better have conceded to the nasty racist arguments. Think for a moment, and it's a terrible moment, of those 3,000 people that died last year trying to escape tyranny, wars, poverty, discrimination and horrors to get out of Libya, to go to Lampedusa or somewhere else. They died in the Mediterranean. Frankly, the decision of the European Union to stop Mare Nostrum's search and protect process and instead setting up a European frontier force to keep these people out and allow them to drown in the sea is the most disgraceful act of inhumanity I can possibly think of. We have to recognise that the price that is paid by others, by the xenophobia of European politicians against migrant workers, leads to impoverishment, leads to exploitation and leads to ghettos all across Europe. What we need is unity, legality and respect for people, and bring people together and treat racism and racists for what they are: wrong, unacceptable and not welcome in our society. And I conclude with this point. I'm going into this election campaign and I'm looking forward to it, because I'm going to say to everybody that says to me the problem is to do with immigration, I will say the problem is, when did a xenophobe ever build a house? When did a xenophobe ever employ a nurse? When can xenophobia defend our public services? No. The argument is bring people together. The argument is bring people together in unity through trade unions, through communities and other things. Build the houses we need, redistribute the wealth to those that need it, defend the hospitals and the principles of the National Health Service, and take heart and hope from the young people of Britain that don't recognise the racist election campaigns of the 60s and 70s, that don't recognise that as their past, but instead recognise those who stood up against the Nazis in Cable Street, in London in the 1970s, who stand up every day against Islamophobia, anti-Semitism or any other form of racism every day. The way forward, my friends, is unity, is respect, is decency, but above all is a collective solution to our problems, not blaming somebody else. Thank you.
And I'd like to introduce Sita Holborn.
Greetings everyone. The reason that why we stand up against racism, against xenophobia, against Islamophobia and anti-Semitism is because we don't want these young people here, these beautiful children here standing with me, to have to go through the same fight I've been through, that my parents went through. It has to stop somewhere. We have to draw a line. Our children don't deserve to spend their lives having to fight racism. Today is the United Nations Day for the Elimination of Racism. It marks the 55th anniversary of the Sharpeville massacre during apartheid South Africa. So I call on you because the theme this year is to remember past genocides, past history of race discrimination. So we must never ever forget what happened in South Africa and apartheid. Politicians would have us believing that we're living now in a post-racial society. But for those of us on the receiving end of racism, the question isn't so much how far have we come, but sadly how far are we going back? The likes of Trevor Phillips are fueling racism to promote themselves and to completely turn the clock back on progress against race discrimination, with no consideration for the damage their action and their words do. And we need to stand up, not just to the racists, but the people like Trevor Phillips that have done what he's done this week. The Immigration Act seeks to create an apartheid-like state here in the UK. And in the past week, we've heard a report about soaring long-term unemployment for young black and minority ethnic people. Black lives are still being taken here in the UK, in the USA and globally. And in 1 week, 1 million people mobilised to support the vile, repeat racist Jeremy Clarkson, who this time physically attacked and racially targeted the Irish to add to a long list of races that he hates. But my question is, how are 1 million people mobilising for a racist like him? Where was the public outrage for the young black and minority ethnic people who are facing long-term unemployment and horrific prospects because of racism? But instead of political parties talking about action to address this crisis, they prefer to blame each other. Those on the receiving end of racism don't want to hear how terrible racism is. We know, we live it, we breathe it, we weep, we get angry because of it, and we have to fight it every day just to survive. It's not enough to be against racism. Politicians, the wider society must be for race equality, and politicians need to walk the walk, not just talk about it. Whilst the likes of Cameron live in wealth, benefiting from the compensation his family gained for slavery ending, there are still no reparations for the millions of enslaved African people, which means we don't have economic equality. And the buildings surrounding us right here were built off the backs of enslaved African people. Right behind you, right there, this National Gallery was built off the back of enslaved African people because of racism. And right now, the management of this National Gallery are trying to privatise it at the expense of migrant workers and blocking our access. So they want to make even more profit out of that building. And my union, the PCS union, are campaigning and striking next week against that privatisation. So come out and join them at lunchtime on Thursday and join the rally and stand up against privatisation, cuts and austerity that are disproportionately impacting on migrant and black workers. And I also want to flag up and promote the Morning Star newspaper, the daily newspaper for us. And they have been instrumental in supporting our campaigns. And I need a copy. That person there has got a copy. I need a copy. I haven't got a copy. Where are they? There's a supplement in today's Morning Star. 8-page supplement about racism with articles written by myself and others. So I have to commend the Morning Star. Unlike the mainstream and right-wing press who seek to fuel racism, they stand up to racism, and that's what we should see from our media.
And every other racist in the country, that we will not be divided, we will not be defeated. They tell us that we're living in a post-racist society. But when the police still, when you're black and 20 times more likely to be stopped by the police on the streets of London, what is that? Racism! When you're black, young and unemployed at a level of 60%, what is that? When the immigration officers target Chinese restaurants, Indian restaurants, African restaurants, Latin American restaurants, looking for so-called illegal workers in the back kitchens, what is that? And when Nigel Farage says he's going to abolish race relations legislation, what is that? And so we're united today all over this country to say we'll stand up to it. Things are bound to get worse. I don't know if you saw the Trevor Phillips documentary. Where's my sign? Let me get my bloody sign. Put a lot of money into this sign. Take a picture. I don't know if you saw the attempt by Trevor Phillips to say that racism is natural, that ethnic stereotypes is indeed a reality for most people. Well, let me tell you, Alex Perosa, who knows who Alex Perosa is? Alex Perosa was a 17-year-old black youth who was standing at a bus stop in Plymouth, who was attacked by a man who put a bottle in his neck and killed him. You haven't heard of that racist attack, have you? Because there's a conspiracy in the media to play down racism and play up UKIP. That's reality. Alex Perosa's dead. He was 17. He was a fantastic footballer.
And because we know that Black Lives Matter, we demand justice and an end to the institutional racism that blights our policing system. And finally, we all know all the mainstream parties are signed up to austerity and they're going to try and blame immigrants, black communities, Muslims, asylum seekers, and we're going to have to be united and stand against that. So I hope to see you all on the People's Assembly March against racism and racist scapegoating on the 20th of June. So get involved and unite against fascism, stand up to racism, and I'm going to go through a fantastic quick list of people that are going to send their greetings from the Piers Telemack, NUS Vice President, signing citizenship. Make some noise! Shreya Cordell, the NUS International Students Officer. Maddie Kirkman, the NUS Disabled Students Officer. Malia Boata, the NUS Black Students Officer. Shakira Martin, President of La
Racist, we ain't racist and we ain't racist. We ain't racist and we ain't racist.
We are the racists.
Hey, solidarity!
Thank you, Shakira. I've got Shreya up next.
Hi guys, my name is Shreya Porel. I'm originally from Nepal and I'm the International Students Officer at NUS. So international students are very much hit by this anti-immigrant rhetoric. When I came here in 2010, we were promised 2 years of post-study work visa after our graduation, right? But in 2012 it was scrapped. So I many like others felt cheated by the British government.
To say that we're very proud to see so many people here today marching against racism, xenophobia and really all forms of hatred. As diverse communities, we have to be vigilant of divide and conquer strategies often used to stunt our ability to mobilize, organize and fight against oppression. Far-right groups continue to grow across Europe and the state is doing all it can to legitimize and institutionalize racism.